She's just helped Townsville to the WNBL title, but there's no time to rest for Susie Bakovic. Earning selection for her fourth Olympics is now the priority.
I keep saying I'm like a fine wine, I just get better with age, but look, if I make this Rio Olympics internationally, for Australia this will be my last bit that I'll be doing. I'll be retiring internationally.
Katie Ray Ebzery has plenty of work to do before she makes her first Games appearance.
It's a talented squad. It's the second best team in the world at the moment, so every position is competitive, and I just sort of have to be on top of my game all the time.
The Opal's week-long Central Coast camp culminates with an intra-squad scrimmage tomorrow night, where the two Newcastle products could go head-to-head.
It's nice having another Novocastrian aboard. It's been a while that I've been on my own.
We can relate to each other about a lot of things and we get along really well, so it's nice to have her as sort of a mentor and, someone who's been there and done it.
Last night's season launch was the first time Chris Adams had been back to Hunter Stadium since Lake's fairy tale premiership. Although the Seagulls have lost fullback Jack Mackin to the Broncos, they've signed Warrnambool Sean Boss and retained halfback Brad Murray, whose partnership with Adams last year was a standout.
We sort of had that last year towards the end of the year as far as our ball work went. Everyone was becoming more comfortable with each other, and it can only be better now.
Bigger changes at runners-up Macquarie. Adam Bettridge has now taken the helm.
From my point of view, last year's gone, and that's no disrespect to what they done last year, but living on last year's not going to get us anywhere. So if anything, we've got to work harder.
Scott Briggs has joined the Scorps from South. Daniel Abraham has returned from Curry, and Macquarie has retained most of its promising juniors.
Football in Toronto is very big. It's an outlet for the community, and it's something that I've taken on board.
But it's West, also with a new coach who'll start the season as favourites. Steve Storey won a premiership with the club in the 1990s and has coached their juniors.
Watching them last year too miss out, it sort of struck a little chord for me too to try to get back and help out if I can.
The entire league has recruited well. Riley Brown to Central is a coup, but the biggest additions are at Harker Oval. Last season's Titans, Brad Tye and Chad Redman, are now Rosellas.
At training, they've both been unreal. Brad especially with his talk and so positive.
They're going to bring a lot to West because they're pretty physical kind of guys. So hopefully it'll be good to play against them actually.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
Live now to reporter Georgina Smythe. And Georgie, what's the government had to say?
Thanks, Tash. Well, it's actually really good news for commercial fishermen. They've been crying out for further assistance for months now. In its response, the federal government says it will extend existing financial packages to fishermen. They'll also be able to access another one-off payment of up to $20,000 from July 1, as well as a transition payment to enable them to fund other forms of work. The response also provides an update to ongoing investigations on the site, with some results expected to be handed down by the end of July. The state government is also expected to make a further announcement on fishing bans at the end of August. Back to you.
Expect to see scenes like this right up to Anzac Day. Operation Saturation is well underway and it's so far so good thanks to a similar campaign over Easter.
We've already had the momentum build up and we just continue on with the pace that we had at this point in time.
The Blitz is aimed at combating the road toll with a specific focus on drink driving. Statewide, police have already conducted more than 1.8 million breath tests this year and they're keen to see the number rise. They're also targeting problem areas in the Hunter, including Lake Macquarie and the Valley.
So we look at it as a cluster and clusters combined, so we can look how we can put our resources in that particular area so we can combat the problem as well.
Police were hoping the relative success of the Easter long weekend blitz would have a positive effect on this operation, and numbers so far are promising. Operation Go Slow will take over the current campaign next week, but it's the same message for drivers.
We're going to be looking towards your drink driving operations, people who use illicit drugs and whilst driving a motor vehicle, exceeding the speed, seatbelt offences, mobile phone offences. Then we look on fatigue and then we build upon there.
Georgina Smythe, NBN News. For football fanatics in the Hunter, it was what dreams are made of. The Socceroos taking down the UAE 2-0 in the Asian Cup semi-final on their journey to becoming champions. Newcastle could soon be in for another taste of international football, with state opposition leader Luke Foley making an unexpected announcement today.
Let's repeat that experience. A packed 24,000 Hunter Stadium for a Socceroos World Cup qualifier with qualification for the next World Cup on the line. I couldn't think of a better atmosphere than at a packed Hunter Stadium.
The venue hosted 4 Asian Cup clashes last year with close to 60,000 spectators filing through the gates, but the impact extended much further.
Football fever gripped the town while games were broadcast to 80 countries. Newcastle and its hospitality shared to billions. Mr Foley has written to both the Premier and Football Federation Australia to lobby for a rematch with the UAE in March next year.
It'll be terrific for Newcastle. You'll have people coming from not only Sydney but all over Australia. You'll have the hotels full, you'll have the bars and restaurants full.
But for now, all we can do is cross our fingers and wait. Emma Murphy, NBN News.
needs to be a proper process, proper open and transparent process to determine what are the ward boundaries, what are the number of councillors that's appropriate.
Who is Mr Toole to be picking and choosing who's going to be a councillor on the new council?
Sporting a beaming smile, it's easy to see just how much life has changed for this treasured little girl. NBN News first met Iva Harris when she was just 2 years old. With her condition a mystery to doctors, she was being treated as having global developmental delay. Her parents struggling to fund TheraSuit therapy, which corrects and challenges motor control. Thanks to the generosity of the community, Iva has since completed 2 lots of treatment. The results astounding.
Her sitting is now, she's as straight as you can possibly get, and her head control and all that's pretty much as good as she'll get. So now it's just working on mainly her legs to get them strong enough.
But those gains have come at a cost. At $7,000 a round, it's needed every 3 to 4 months. That's where Corey Newman steps or runs in. The family selected to benefit from a fundraising project she created several years ago called Run with a Story.
Coming from a family myself where we really struggled with health. I've lost 3 of my siblings and I'm the only remaining. And again, our condition was very rare, so I know how hard it can be as a family. And watching the rewards come through from the families that we have had in the last 3 years, it's very exciting, very rewarding, and it's a real credit to Newcastle runners.
The community helped us through times that people aren't really ready for. And now they're still here 5 years later, so we can only thank them for that.
Runners will hit the pavement on May 1st. Emma Murphy, NBN News.
G'day guys, we're here with Jets coach Scott Miller. It must be good to get off the training paddock.
Listen, I was thinking about this on my walk here and I thought to myself, another week training to be playing against possibly Brisbane this evening would have been far outweigh being here tonight, but we're very excited about tonight all the same. Yeah,
I was just going to say, mate, the team's seen a lot of improvements this year, but you would like to be playing finals football?
Yeah, that was the overall underwriting sort of approach we had to the season, and it would have been ideal, but it's not to be. So tonight we celebrate a significant season for everyone involved, for a lot of hard work, and not only us, but the youth team and the W League as well, so it's nice.
Some of the players, Mark Birighitti, he's had an outstanding year for you guys. Will this be his last awards night?
I'd retain Mark for a good 5-6 seasons. He's been that good, but his ambition is possibly here or elsewhere. It's still to be determined, but apart from that, his contribution this season has been outstanding, and I think our points tally is very reflective in his form.
Certainly. Well, you know, we hope that he is among the award winners tonight. Tomorrow night we're going to have a full wrap-up of all the award winners here. Back to you. The Knights gearing up for their toughest road trip yet, a date with the competition's benchmark at Suncorp Stadium.
We just got to go up there with the attitude that we're going to win, and that's how we've been training all week, and that's what we plan to do. Smith is a surprise inclusion. Coach Nathan Brown giving the co-captain until the 11th hour to overcome a knee complaint and notch his 200th NRL match.
He's an inspiration to us all. I mean, I've looked up to him for a while.
As a precaution, he's named David Barner and Josh King, taking the round table, travelling to Brisbane up to 19. It'll be Barner's first match since injuring his ankle in round 2. He's likely to play in a utility role.
Lock's my preferred position. But you know, anything for the team. You know, I'll drop in for gags if they need me, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
Sione Matautia returns from concussion. Jack Stockwell is also back in the starting side. He's under no illusions about the task ahead.
They're a top 4 team, mate. So if you can beat them, you're going all right. They're the benchmark of the comp at the moment. So if we can beat them, it'll show where we're at.
Mike Lorrigan, NBN News.
We're incorporating new kids, so to get a new bunch of talent coming in and just getting to work with them and just sharing the positive message of acceptance and you know, following your dreams, it's really nice.
An emotional Bob Baldwin bowing out.
I thank all of my constituents, all of my supporters for all of the help.
The former Liberal frontbencher says he's lost his passion for the role and was talked into recontesting the redrawn and marginal seat of Paterson.
It wasn't my intention to run. Colleagues convinced me of the need to run, but what I found is the fire in the belly is not glowing as hard as it once did.
A strategic decision making way for sentimentality today.
It's an emotional decision.
It's the right decision.
He admits the election will be a tough fight for the next Liberal candidate after a boundary overhaul.
They need someone who can carry on over the next 3 years as an effective campaigner. I don't think I could sit there for 3 years and be an effective Member of Parliament.
He's most proud of work on the duplication of the Pacific Highway and raising money for disability groups.
There have been so many things that have made me immensely proud, but more importantly, has satisfied the needs of my constituents.
There's no question the announcement evens the playing field for Labor candidate Meryl Swanson, but she says she won't be distracted from the election.
All I can do is focus on my campaign, listening to the people of Paterson and delivering the positive messages that Australian Labor has for them, like health, education and jobs.
Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
For 79-year-old prawner Jeff Hyde, the federal government's Senate inquiry response late yesterday afternoon brought little satisfaction.
There's no common sense in it, girl. None at all.
It's nearing 8 months since fishermen had their livelihoods put on hold, with fishing bans implemented in the wake of the Williamtown RAF base contamination. The Australian government has now announced it'll continue an income subsidy 8 weeks beyond June 30. It's also offering a business hardship payment of up to $20,000 from July 1, as well as a transition payment of up to $25,000 to pursue other work.
$25,000. Now, what could you do with that for a start? And where could you go? It just doesn't make any sense.
Federal member for Newcastle, Sharon Clayton, has labelled the response unsatisfactory.
Here we are, 2 months later since the report came down, still no action, and at the very best all the government can come up with is give us another 10 weeks.
Lucinda Hornby from the Wild Caught Fishers Coalition says it will make little difference.
There's no on-the-table assistance for us now to help with mortgages, family finances and the ongoing financial burden that we are all suffering.
That sentiment also shared by those affected at Hexham.
Financially and mentally, these fishermen can't continue living the way they are and struggling the way they are. And, to have a feeling that something positive might come and then to listen to the responses from yesterday, and it's actually, just terrible. It's quite frustrating.
For many fishermen and their families, what concerns them most is the uncertainty. They say they need answers now so they can decide what to do with their future.
We're hurting now. We need assistance now. We need direction. We need guidance.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
The hardest thing about finding the perfect dress on Hunter Street is finding a park.
Happens every day that a customer comes into store.
Newcastle bridal house owner Michelle Stevens says the issue will be worse under the latest light rail proposal.
The thought of having no parking on the main street is just crazy.
This is the state government's current plan. Starting on the old heavy rail corridor, the new light rail will snake into Hunter Street at Worth Place and all the way up to Pacific Park, taking with it up to 2 lanes of traffic.
But the animation has left nothing but a bad impression on some business owners who say the loss of about 280 car spaces will cripple activity in the city, drive people away and compound existing congestion.
Colin Scott from Frontline Hobbies sells a light rail model in his shop, but he's not buying the current plan. After 40 years in business, he's considering shutting up shop.
If there's no parking in the immediate vicinity, we would have to look at our options.
Coffee owner Peter Johnston is also nervous.
We have quite a regular clientele that pull up, grab a coffee and take off, and they take our parks away. It won't be good for business.
But some say it'll be worth the short-term pain.
Parking in Newcastle is already pretty tedious, so losing a few extra is probably not going to make that much of a difference.
Public consultation is open until May 19. Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
Issues. So today's rally is an opportunity for the people of Newcastle to come together and say enough's enough, hands off our Medicare.
The Tars knew they were up against it and they came out firing, both sides opting for the boot early. There were plenty of spills, the ref receiving some unwanted dental work. Sherritt looking dangerous with the ball in hand, even more lethal when facing the sticks, kicking 4 penalties in the first half. The Tars were dealt a blow, losing Frank Roberts after a head knock with Dylan Haynes, and after sustained pressure on the visitors' line, the Hawks managed to cross for the game's first 5-pointer. After the break, it took just 4 minutes for Hamilton to muscle its way over again. Minutes later, and big Jonathan Agnew finding space, and the Hawks had their third. The game well and truly out of the Tars' hands as Bainivalu streaked away for the first of his 2 tries. A late consolation try, not enough to stop Hamilton finishing up 44-17 winners, cementing their spot at the top of the table. Mike Lorrigan, NBN News.
With water streaming in and pouring down, Newcastle Airport was inundated and struggling to cope. A deluge caused part of the roof in the check-in lounge to come crashing to the ground.
Complete chaos.
Just chaos.
The airport, all but shut, flights in and out cancelled.
We're working with airlines to see how we can best facilitate their flying.
2 people were injured in the drama, the rest left not so high and not so dry.
I was going to Melbourne, totally can't.
So what's your plan now?
Get back to my brother's place and try and rearrange a booking for tomorrow.
Yeah, we've just been on the phone rearranging flights accommodation.
Also among those caught out, the Newcastle Knights, tweeting this after being forced to head back to enemy territory. Only one carrier, Fly Pelican, was left operating.
I just really am frustrated with the lack of information that's been given to us.
There's been no communication at all.
We've been trying to get out as much as we can. We've been putting out announcements. The airlines have been great trying to talk to people. We've had our staff down here. We're doing the best we can.
Passengers still face lengthy delays well into tomorrow. At this stage, the airport isn't expected to reopen until late in the morning. The first flight out is set to be around midday. Passengers with any concerns are being urged to contact their airline. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News. Stepping their way to a sweet reward in the Great Grape Stomp. Contestants putting their best foot forward, the aim to produce the most grape juice.
Oh, I can't wait. I want to do this my whole life. So.
Competition was tough and far from easy, but it was all about having fun and putting the hunter on show.
It shows the city that we can work with the vineyards to produce a first-class festival.
The Grape Stomp is all about highlighting and showcasing the region's winemaking industry. And with more than 34 wineries setting up here today, it's attracted over 10,000 people, injecting well over $3 million into the Hunter economy.
All the people who've come out to celebrate this festival for Cessnock, and it's fantastic for the economic development of our local government area.
Times have been fairly hard with the mining industry, etc. So this is a bit of positivity for the locals and for the businesses.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
The game was only 8 minutes old when Jared Mullen became Newcastle's first casualty. The Broncos capitalised quickly. Oates and Anthony Milford both collected doubles before the break. Down 22-0 going into the second act, the Knights' Tyler Randall was unable to return to the field Then Nathan Ross was concussed minutes in. Newcastle's bench was down to 1, an issue the coach was keen to address post-match.
The NRL's got to address this concussion rule. If they're going to keep going down this path, we've got to have more players. You know, we should have an 18th and 19th man.
Despite eventually conceding 53 points, Nathan Brown refused to condemn his side.
There's a lot of young kids out there that, as I said, they're trying to learn to get to the pace of the game in their own position, never alone try and play in all other people's positions. And so, you know, I think they deserve a little bit of slack there, you know.
Former Newcastle mentor Wayne Bennett had some sympathy for the Knights, but not his rival coach.
They picked 4 forwards on the interchange bench, so you know you can't put all your eggs in one basket, and you know you lose a couple of backs, and all of a sudden you've got back rowers defending the centres.
We never thought that we'd been going for 30 years, and those early singers went on to have careers. A number of them have actually now retired from careers in Australian opera and German opera companies.
The Hunters women were missing Opal's representative Katie Ray Ebzery after she spent the week in camp with the national side. But Newcastle couldn't have started better without her. Sophie Kleeman, Susie Walmsley, Charlotte Bull and American import Shannon Novosel were all on the score sheet before the Bankstown Bruins had made a shot. By the end of the first quarter, Alison Ebzery had helped the home side to a 24 points to 9 advantage. The Hunters would go on to win every quarter and cruise to a 31-point win. Walmsley top scored with 21, Novosel finished with 15 points and 8 rebounds in what was a team effort. The men's game was a much tighter affair. Newcastle jumped out to a 7-point lead at quarter time before both sides were restricted to just 9 each in the second. NBL veteran Russell Hinder had a massive afternoon for the Hunters. He ended the contest with 25 points and 15 rebounds, leading the game in both categories. American import Justin Hammond dropped in 18, as Newcastle held on to win by 7.
He's the champion boxer convicted of assaulting his ex-girlfriend. Today, it was the magistrate who dealt the blows. The fighter, known as the Hitman, sentenced to a 4-month intensive corrections order for an attack on former partner Tory Lee Hillary in September last year. The court earlier heard he grabbed her by the throat and slammed her to the ground, then posted images and details on social media. Magistrate Alan Railton said the 22-year-old showed an absolute lack of contrition or remorse. Words Tory Lee wasn't surprised to hear.
Kyron was found guilty, he's shown no remorse and he'll pay the consequences. I am very happy with the justice system today and I feel as though it will help other girls come forward.
Dryden has been steadfast in protesting his innocence. Moments after the sentence was handed down, his legal team launched an appeal.
On the 2nd of September, claimed his innocence. On the 9th of November at court, he claimed his innocence. On the 11th of January, claimed his innocence. He's been found guilty, he has appealed. We'll leave it for the determination of the court.
If that's the way he wants to go about it, I'll come through with it, I'll stand here, I'll fight. I don't have any other choice.
The matter will return to court on the 26th of May. Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
A sight to behold at Newcastle Airport today. Planes back in the sky and passengers getting off the ground.
I like to check in and get out of here.
Left stranded yesterday after this. A partial roof collapse closing the airport and grounding flights. Today, services were back up and running. The first departure of the day, Fly Pelican to Sydney at 6 a.m. The first arrival, Virgin Australia, touching down at 7:13.
At the moment, most of the flights are operating to normal.
There were 4 early morning cancellations, though, 2 Jetstar flights, a Virgin Australia and a Qantas Link, all grounded. Jetstar passengers were ushered to a makeshift check-in counter at arrivals.
Just simply because there's a volume of passengers that we're expecting.
The site of yesterday's drama, still a little soggy, and still a repair work in progress. It's not known just when the check-in lounge will reopen and check-in services will return to normal, so the advice for all passengers flying in and out of Newcastle Airport is to leave plenty of time. The backlog orbit cleared. Any passengers with concerns should contact their airlines. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
It sat broken and idle for 12 months, but now there's movement at the Shepherd's Hill building. Swathed in protective plastic, the cottage is having hazardous material removed, a task expected to take contractors 5 weeks to complete. The work has come as a surprise to the cottage's former tenant.
I haven't heard from council at all, and it's a shame because I represent the Marine Rescue Newcastle.
The organisation has been operating from a temporary base on Kooragang Island, but hopes to return to its more appropriate hilltop home as soon as possible.
We've lost a lot of members. We're losing experienced people. And the members that are there, the resilience that they've shown, and I just can't thank them enough.
Newcastle Council has applied to the State Office of Environment and Heritage to repair the building once the asbestos is gone, and that could take a further 8 months. Meanwhile, a diversion for pedestrians at South Newcastle Beach came into effect today as Council continues work on the seawall remediation between the skate park and King Edward Park.
I really had a lot of fun doing it, and each time you go and talk to someone, their stories would come up and things that they'd like to include in the exhibition.
He made an immediate impact after signing in January. The Jets' goal of the year in Morten Nordstrand's first start. The coach is confident the best is yet to come.
I'd probably suggest you've only seen half of his ability in the games in comparison to what he produces on the training ground. So I think with the fitness work he'll do and the time to get his family over and be more settled away from the training ground, it will be of great benefit to the squad.
I really enjoyed my time, and since my family came out here and loved it as well, it was easy for me to sign for another year.
The former Danish international is impressed with the club's direction.
I can feel like the hunger of doing better and better, and I think that we did better throughout the couple of months I've been here.
With 7 players already released, Scott Miller's recruitment drive is well advanced. He'll scout overseas in May, but won't approach other A-League players until the off-season.
I've been very respectful of that. I've got a number of players that are involved in finals football now that I'm interested in and we're actually in discussions with, but nowhere near a signature.
A potential new owner will have a huge impact, especially on the potential to attract marquees.
You don't want to buy the house before you found out if you can have a mortgage, so that's the case. I need to ascertain whether or not the new ownership will go through shortly, and if it does, we can be more aggressive in the transfer market.
The finishing touches are being made, a sure sign the countdown to the Aussies is well and truly on.
It's always close, it's super close. Everyone's worked hard, around Australia. Everyone's really paddling well, swimming well, and yeah, it can come down to whether the ocean's on your side even.
And for Redhead Ski Squad, the Australian titles can't come soon enough.
We didn't come down too much for state, and everyone's looking really strong. I think everyone's pretty much where they're at to have a successful Australians.
There's a familiar face leading the charge. Two-time Olympian Peter Scott.
Even at 41 years of age, he's still second best in the state, and I don't think he's missed an Australian final for 10 years. So he's a bit of an enigma, and then everyone flows off his enthusiasm and inspiration.
Along with Mark Stowe and with the addition of Greg Tobin from Swansea Belmont, the ski section is looking strong. Add 3-time Australian board champion Stuart McLaughlin and leading swimmer Dan Collins, and the club boasts depth across the board.
Redhead seems to have the strength, and it's good to get on board amongst a good culture. To be in the Taplin, it's the A Taplin. They've got some great competitors, and hopefully we'll be pushing up there for a medal contention.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
Dennis Johnson knows the heartache and pain of suicide more than anyone should. A despair he too has felt. Through Dennis's heartache came hope through just one call.
Hello, this is Lifeline. May we help you?
Lifeline does help a lot of people, me in particular.
A survivor, Dennis is also a Lifeline volunteer, today helping launch the charity's latest campaign, 8 for a Mate.
8 people a day suicide, about 2,800 a year, Australians, and that's double the road toll.
By giving $8 a month or $2 a week, Lifeline can ensure the continuation of its vital services.
There are some desperate people in the community, but that one phone call can change a life, and that one phone call can save a life.
In the Hunter and on the Central Coast, Lifeline provides support to around 25,000 people each year, helping to save an estimated 5,000 people from suicide. And as Dennis will tell you, every life is worth saving.
The most important thing in life is life. There is nothing more. So you must look after your own life.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
It may look like an ordinary hotel room, but for many cancer patients forced to travel for treatment, having an affordable place to stay makes all the difference. That's why the Cancer Council has teamed up with Accor Hotels to offer patients and their families discounted accommodation.
We hear a lot through our Cancer Council information centres at the hospitals that we have of patients coming in saying they need to travel down to Sydney for treatment and really debating whether or not they can actually make that trip.
Under the deal, patients get 30% of the cost of their stay at any one of the chain's 62 hotels, a big help to the 16,000 people in New South Wales who have to travel for treatment every year.
At Cancer Council, what we want is for people to focus on getting better and on their treatment and looking after themselves. So by taking away things like the burden of accommodation, we're hoping that patients will feel a lot less stressed, and obviously then we'll have better outcomes moving forward.
24-year-old James Garlick battled cancer as a teenager, spending weeks in hospital in Sydney.
My mum and my grandmother travelled with me, and for that reason we had to get accommodation down there. I spent about 25 weeks being treated and diagnosed, and in total that came to over $10,000.
He hopes the partnership will help families stay together.
I was not in a good state to handle doctors, to answer questions. Most of the time I was too sick to string together a sentence, so Mum had to answer many of the doctor's questions. How are you feeling this week? You know, how's treatment affecting you? All that sort of stuff.
Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
Thursday night on NBN News, 1 year on from the April superstorm, how worst hit Dungog has recovered since the tragedy.
It's just bringing me back that it actually happened.
A look back at the storm of the century, Thursday night on NBN News.
I stayed at Fulham for 9 years and had numerous opportunities to leave, and having bought into this contract for 2 years, I think I want to sustain that level of professionalism and improve the club. Whether or not Mark is here next year or not is completely up to him and his ambition, but he's certainly welcome here. only if he doesn't get carried away and remains focused.
Anzac Day's clash with Trent Barrett's Sea Eagles, bringing back memories for Nathan Brown. The coach didn't mince his words at this morning's press conference. It was the second worst loss in the club's history, 53-0. 3 players sidelined, 1 on report, and they didn't get home until midnight Sunday.
Flying back, we had a bit of mishap with the planes and all sorts of stuff for the airport, so it was quite a long journey to get back.
Friendly fire left Jared Mullen seeing stars. Tyler Randall also knocked out cold by a teammate, while Nathan Ross motionless minutes into the second half. All 3 have seen specialists today and included in this week's squad. Brown is confident they'll be right for round 8.
Nowhere near as severe as the Sione one the week before, so all signs indicate that they should all be okay to play.
Meanwhile, Paulie will miss the Anzac Day clash after accepting the early guilty plea on a Grade 2 careless high tackle charge.
Paulie's obviously made a little bit of contact with the head, and generally that results in what it's resulted in, so he'll probably unfortunately miss this week, I'd imagine.
The 8-day turnaround, though, spells good news for injured co-captain Jeremy Smith and hooker Danny Levi. Both are expected to return. The coach also keen to explore the Broncos' use of peppermint oil.
If it works as well as it worked the other night, we might have to give it a try.
Mike Lorrigan, NBN News.
It's an area known to locals as Second Creek, and it was here last night more than 50 youths gathered for a party. At 9 o'clock though, the police arrived following reports a teenager had allegedly assaulted two other partygoers with a glass bottle.
As we know, at this stage there's some sort of an altercation occurred between these males. As a result of that, one sustained an injury to the back of his head and the other one got slashed to the face.
The pair was treated at Belmont Hospital. A 17-year-old boy has been charged with assault occasioning actual bodily harm and reckless wounding. He'll face children's court on May 16.
That type of behaviour is just not acceptable. It doesn't matter where you are, any public place.
There's no doubt this is a popular stretch of beach, but it hasn't been without its issues in the past. Problems like antisocial behaviour and illegal dumping were some of the reasons why the State Park Trust campaigned to introduce permits. It's now been 5 months since four-wheel drive permits came into effect and a part-time ranger was employed. Chair of the Trust, Greg Wright, says while there have been improvements in people's behaviour, he admits it's not a fix-all approach.
Anyone doing something here at the State Park has to be aware of their responsibilities too, to the rest of the community.
Renee Feder, NBN News. Paintbrush in hand, canvas on easel, step into Dino Consalvo's office.
It's a great place to paint, and there are so many paintings here.
The painter is out to depict some of Newcastle's favourite swimming spots, but in an ever-changing landscape, the challenge is capturing something before it disappears.
The movement of the tide, the way the rocks change, the light changes.
The same goes for his subjects.
It's the same thing. It's like the tide coming in and out. People come in, they go out, and they're all interesting.
The exercise is called Unplain Air.
It's painting a period of time rather than capturing one moment.
And if you stand in one spot long enough, you may become part of the picture.
Can you sort of move your legs a little bit so you look like yeah, that's it.
Naturally, the session attracts a range of onlookers.
Yeah, you get a lot of people coming and talking about what I'm doing and having a look, having a peek.
A moment at the beach captured on canvas. Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
We look for the same sort of aroma, texture, taste in all of them, but they have different characteristics.
Thursday night on NBN News, 1 year on from the April superstorm, how worst hit Dungog has recovered since the tragedy.
We're still pulling stuff out 12 months. We haven't even got some shelves that still got water in them and parts that got water in them.
A look back at the storm of a century tomorrow night on NBN News.
In the Knights' formative years, a clash with Manly in Newcastle was a fixture that turned first-grade players into legends. Those games may be ancient history for the current squad, but one of those legends has ensured the rivalry will live on this Monday when the Sea Eagles return for the first time in 4 years.
I didn't know too much about it before I came to Newcastle, but
Paul Harrigan let me know about that one, so he's obviously right into it, and we want to embrace that.
Dane Gagai says he's still getting used to life at fullback, having made the switch earlier this season. With Peter Matautia released from the Dragons to return to Newcastle, is the Queensland Origin representative expecting to lose his spot?
That's not my decision to make. That's why we have coaches and recruitment staff, so I'm here to do a job for the team, and like I said, whether I play on the wing, centre, fullback, I'm going to do the best I can.
Having grown up in Singleton, the significance of Manly's visit isn't lost on young forward Josh King.
It's going to be a big game, you know, Jeremy Smith's 200 game, and on Anzac Day as well. It's a massive privilege to be able to, if I get the opportunity to be able to play there on Anzac Day.
The 21-year-old is still on a high after making his debut in the big loss to the Broncos.
Going up against Brisbane in my first game, I was actually quite happy about that because I got to really test myself straight up against the best team in the comp.
King is now keen to establish himself in the top grade.
I fancy myself as a front rower. Hopefully I can stick to that position. I think I see myself as I'm trying to be more of an endurance player, be able to play the big minutes and get through the hard work.
The stage was long. The last little bit of it got really difficult. We made a pretty big navigation error there at the end.